some low-key music. This is Dicey Dungeons stuff. All right. So let's talk about Skies of Arcadia. It's playing the intro right now. And it should loop, so I think we should be good. Yeah. All right. So it's been like 40 hours. And like I said, like we said before, I needed to do a lot of backtracking in order to finish the game. So I think I would have probably finished around 42 hours, 43 maybe. Now, if I got in a little more combat, my levels would have been higher. And maybe it wouldn't have been such a slog. Like, I think maybe if I got in more ship combat too, I could have earned more captain stripes. Maybe like picked up on it a little bit better. Like, had the end of the game be a little easier on me. I don't know. But I know that if you've watched through all of these like 20 something VODs, then like you know that the game was kind of overstaying its welcome for me a little at the end. But let's break it down in two ways. Things I liked, and then things I didn't like, and then who this game is for. Like, who would I suggest pick up this game? First, we're going to talk about stuff I liked. All the characterization was really great. The world is cheerful, which at the time, it felt like people were trying to make games that were like gritty, grimdark. Like, it was the era of like the original Killzone and stuff like that. RPGs, especially Japanese RPGs, kind of shied away from grimdark stuff, but like in Western games, it was everywhere. So this game was like upbeat, uplifting. Like, it was, the whole theme of it was great. All the concept design, the ships, and the personalities that the ships had, as well as the personalities of the characters, how the characters interacted and like joked around was like top notch. It created a very light atmosphere for the entire game. The gigas are like so freaking cool. Like, the idea of like battling giant kaiju monsters in your ship was something that I didn't think we were gonna do. There was like a subtle nod to Panzer Dragoon, which I loved. The dungeon where I think it was the green dungeon, the one where, what's the guy's name? Del Loco, I believe. The Del Loco dungeon, where you had platform, where it was like kind of had a little bit of verticality, and there were platforms you could drop through, and like right or wrong ways to go, and traps and things like that. That dungeon, most engaging dungeon in the game. I really enjoyed that whole section. In fact, Del Loco in general, whenever he showed up, like the game got better. It like flat out. Belza was really great. Yeah, all that stuff was so good. All the animations were really, really incredible. You could tell that Sega was really showing off. So at the time, Sega before they made this, they were on the Saturn, and they were making like Panzer Dragoon Saga, and you can tell that like they were building in transparencies more. Like, the Saturn could handle that stuff, but didn't handle it well. It was hard to do on the Saturn, and you could tell they were like showing off on the Dreamcast and then eventually on the GameCube. You can tell that like the animators were having a lot of fun with this. All the animations for all the like, you know, NPCs, like the shopkeepers and stuff, it was all like over the top and super fun. Yeah, all the character design, I keep gushing about the same things. It's basically all of the polish of the game is really, really great, you know? Now on to what I didn't like. Basically, everything that required player input was annoying. Like, I did not enjoy the combat. I did not enjoy the ship combat. I other than the Del Loco dungeon, most of the dungeons were just like a hallway and that was it. Or it would be like, hey, there's 6 different routes for you to take, but 2 of them are dead ends, and then you turn around and go the other way, and you're just getting into combat in between. And it never felt like, and this could have been indicative of the time, you know, like RPGs have evolved in big ways. Right now, twitch.tv/Ilion_ Cam's playing Wizardry 6, and that game is bogging you down in systems, basically. And this game is light on systems, but they still haven't like figured out how to make the exploration fun. Like they put so much work into animation, design, look of the game, the feel of the game, flying the ship, like all that stuff, which is great. But I feel like they kind of dropped the ball a little bit with dungeon design, with combat, and with the ship combat. And here's my gripe. Here's my gripe with the combat. So you get into combat, right? And you have a certain amount of guts points. And this all sounds great in theory. Like, you have a certain amount of, and I enjoyed it at first, honestly. You have a certain amount of guts points or spirit points, and you can't do big spells, right? Because you don't have enough points. So in order to fire off those big spells, you got to focus, right? You focus your energy, you think for a turn, and then you fire off something huge. But the problem is that I kept getting into combat, and then it was like, all right, I'm in combat. Pass first turn, you know, like every time, because I was trying to fire off something big. Or I'd fire off something smaller in the first turn, not have enough points for anything else, and then just like focus the team. I felt like I was like, I don't even think Finna did like anything through this game. Very little actual combat for Finna. Like, she just sat there and focused. She was like, it was basically like Vice doing things, Arcadia doing things, and then 2 warm bodies that were just sitting there focusing the entire time. And it created this pace of combat that was incredibly slow. Even when you were in, like, when you're going through a dungeon, I should be able to like bang out those idiots like fighting me, you know, like I should be able to just like, if I put 20 hours in already, like just blaze through the peons and like get to the boss, you know. It should never be me passing turns. We're into turn 6, you know, like, and then on top of that, the encounter rate is so high that it was just like, you hit a point where you're just bogged down. And anecdotally, a handful of people who I was playing this game over a few months, and doing a lot of reading as much as I could about it, and I read a handful of people who were like, oh, I love that game. I never finished it. I never got to the end. I don't know why I dropped it, but I remember really enjoying it. And this is the thing. This is the thing with this game. It leaves you with a really great impression because you remember all the great character interactions, you remember the animations, you remember really enjoying it. You forget that the combat takes forever. You forget that the encounter rate is like cranked up, you know? Those mechanics don't leave a lasting impression, especially if you only played like 20 hours or 10 hours, you know, before you bounced out. You're gonna be like, oh, Skies of Arcadia. Yeah, I remember flying around in that game, like hanging out with my anime buds, you know, like it's gonna seem like something that's really, really fun. You remember it fondly. But the truth is that anytime you were in control, it was brutal. And the thing is too, is that they didn't give you a lot of options for combat. They really slimmed the systems way down. You had magic, and you had attacking, and you had focusing, and then you had S moves that you could unlock, super moves that you could unlock through the game. But largely, you were falling into, or at least I was, the same handful of things over and over and over again. I was rarely getting into like, oh, I need this spell, I need this spell, I need this spell. You know, I was never like shuffling around. And I think it's because the game was never too hard on me. It was just like too obnoxious on me, if that makes sense. And then the ship combat was the same thing. It was like everything was taking forever. It would show you a cutscene of your ship, then you would do the action. Then a cutscene of their ship, then they would do the action. And it would do that for it would show an establishing shot for like every single action. And when you do that with 8 actions, you're into 16 shots before the player can do something again. And then on top of that, it's turn-based. But a big part of like ship combat is maneuverability. So you never get control over your ship. You never feel like you're really in control because you're not maneuvering around with like a bunch of other ships. You're just like, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. Go, you know? And I wish there was just like a little bit of maneuverability. You know, playing games, and it's a little bit of an unfair example, but like Assassin's Creed Black Flag or Sea of Thieves, because those are action games, not RPGs. But so much in the ship combat, you can take the maneuverability and then use turns. Like if you put the ships on a grid or something, or a cube, and like they're maneuvering and you're maneuvering in like real time while the turns are firing off, that could be really fun. And a little bit more engaging. Yeah, I just felt like everything felt clunky, and the animators were showing off and everything looked great, but it was like, oh, I'm gonna do this move for the 50th time. And it's like, you know, Vice is first he slashes the ground, then like a bunch of air flows around him, then he gets hit by lightning bolts, then he charges the guy, or he shoots up in the air, then he charges the guy, then the pirate symbol appears. It's like, guys, just pick one thing, fire it off, and let me move on with the game, you know? Like, I understand that you're showing off because like this is the first time you're able to, you know? I don't know. It might be just a relic of the time. And this is the thing, is like, I think this game mechanically is a relic of the time. I think that the story and everything holds up. I will say that when it wasn't the characters getting into antics with each other, I was very bored by the rest of the story. Like, the rest of the story, find the 6, you know, Chaos Emeralds and move on with your life. That was the story. But like, the thing that kept me going, the thing that kept me like from, there were multiple points where I was like, I don't know if I can play this game anymore. And the thing that kept me going was these character interactions. And like, I wanted to see what was going on with Claire and Gilder. I wanted to see what was going on. You know, Vice and Akia were like joking around. I wanted to see if there was going to be a romance between like Vice, Akia, Belza even, or Finna, you know? I wanted to see like how these things were going to pan out with these characters. I really didn't care about the get the 6 MacGuffins and then save the world kind of stuff. Like, that stuff was probably the most boring part of the story. So yeah, I feel like that's my gripe with the game. And the thing is too, is that like, the combat never twists, you know, like it never ramps in complexity. You play it for 5 hours and you're gonna feel everything the game is gonna do for the rest of the game, you know? I would say that games that have done like the guts system or spirit points well would be like Bravely Default does it so well because you can go into debt with the points and give up turns in the future, rather. So like if it did that, I could fire off my big stuff right away, and then like if I fail, then it's like, oh, it's real because I'm gonna miss a couple turns. But if I fire off a couple things, like big things right away that I've earned in the game, like let me use it. And if they're dead, then they're dead. Then we can all move on. And that's how Bravely Default handles it. But like, you know, we're comparing a game from 2005 to, or I don't know when Skies of Arcadia, I think 2005 or ish, to a newer game. And that's a little unfair. There was a Four Heroes of Light also had a similar system with like guts points and stuff like that. That was on the DS. Yeah, so good things, bad things. Who is this game for? Like, I don't think that every GameCube owner should have this game. I think if you're into JRPGs, there's a million others that are going to be more enjoyable hour to hour than this one is. This one had so many bright points, but none of which were things that were like under my control or like I was pushing forward. It was like I was pushing forward through like the slog, and then I would get a cool cutscene that I really enjoyed, you know, mostly. So I would say if you're a JRPG fan, like, and you've like hit the limit, like you've played all the other games, you've played through everything, you're good to go, and you're finally getting around to this one, yeah, play it. I mean, if you're a huge fan of the genre, but I think this is a very middle of the road game. I think that if you're looking for deep mechanics within the JRPG kind of genre, it's not here. The other person I would recommend this game to is a big Sega fan. If you are playing through like the Overworks library of games, if you're playing through the Saturn ones and you get to the Dreamcast and you're playing it on the Dreamcast, yeah, I by all means, because you can see a progression in there that's really interesting. But yeah, the average GameCube user, I think skip it. Like, I think part of the reason why this game got a lot of notoriety was because at the time when someone might have only had a GameCube, when the GameCube had come out, there was not a lot on the GameCube. Like, people are really excited about the GameCube right now in 2021. And I think that a lot of that is nostalgia fueled. And I think that, because I remember at the time, like, the GameCube compared to like the PS2's library like outstrips the GameCube by a margin. But over time, the PS2's interlaced signal looks bad. The GameCube got some HDMI options that look really great. And also Dolphin emulator like is really solid. You end up with something that is better in the future than the PS2 was. Because of that, I think people are looking back fondly on the GameCube, but they don't remember how this game was when it came out. Like, people were thirsty for GameCube games at the time. It seemed like there was 5 cool releases for the PS1 or the PS2, and then like 1 for the GameCube would come out. So because of that, I feel like this game got, and there was, on top of that, there was like very little RPGs for the GameCube. So like this was it. Like what we played was basically what you played if you were a GameCube RPG fan. And because of that, I feel like it got a lot of attention, it got a lot of notoriety, and it got on like top 10 lists for GameCube. It got on like, you know, forum posts that were made in like, you know, the mid 2000s. And then that information, that nugget got repeated and repeated and repeated by people who hadn't actually played the game, by collectors and stuff like that. And then because of that, people are like, oh, if I get a GameCube, I gotta get Skies of Arcadia. But the truth is, in 2022, you are maybe better off playing something else if you're just like a casual like player. If I were you, if I were thinking about this game, I would say try to emulate it. Try to see if you can figure that out, or if you can borrow a copy from a friend, and just try before you buy. If you get 5 hours in and you're like, I still enjoy this, pick it up. If you get 5 hours in and you're kind of like, this is kind of a slog, I would say skip it. So